Welcome back to the Nightmare Crypt. Lock your doors, dim the lights, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. Tonight's story is a personal account sent in by a viewer who isn't sure how much time they have left to warn others. I need to say this up front, before you decide whether to keep listening. If you start noticing ravens where you live, if one in particular keeps showing up, watching, waiting, don't try to explain it away. Don't tell yourself it's just an animal. That's the mistake I made, and by the time I understood what I'd done wrong, something irreversible had already taken hold. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm not even sure I believe half of what I've experienced anymore. But there are things happening around me that don't make sense unless I get this out of my head and into the world. A record, a warning, proof that I didn't imagine all of it. I know that sounds like the beginning of 100 different stories, and I wish that's all this was. Grief warping my senses, making ordinary things feel loaded with meaning. I told myself that over and over. Grief does strange things, right? Makes you fixate, makes you see patterns that aren't there. But grief doesn't leave marks on your windows. Grief doesn't learn your schedule. Grief doesn't wait for you outside your door. The raven did. If you're listening to this on Nightmare Crypt and you're already feeling uneasy, trust that instinct. Pause the video. Look outside. Make sure nothing's watching you from somewhere it shouldn't be. And if you notice a black shape perched too still for too long, don't do what I did. Don't acknowledge it. And that was the moment everything started to fall apart. I live in a small town in western Pennsylvania, the kind of place that still has a diner on Main Street and a post office that closes at noon. After my brother's funeral, I couldn't stand being in my apartment anymore. Every room felt loud with his absence. So I took some time off work and drove out to the house he'd left me, an old place at the edge of town, half surrounded by woods and the rest by empty fields. It wasn't creepy, not at first, just old. The house smelled like dust and pine cleaner. The floors creaked in predictable ways. Pipes knocked when I ran the shower too hot. Normal stuff. I unpacked slowly, fell into a routine. Morning coffee on the back steps, emails in the afternoon, dinner too late at night. The first time I saw the raven, it was perched on the fence post near the driveway. Big bird, bigger than I expected. Its feathers looked almost oily in the sunlight, black layered over black. It didn't fly off when I opened my car door, just tilted its head and watched me like it was waiting for something. "Shoo," I said, waving a hand. It didn't move. I remember thinking it was strange, but not scary. Ravens are smart. I'd read that somewhere. I carried my bags inside and forgot about it. The next morning, it was still there. Same fence post. Same posture. When I stepped onto the porch with my coffee, it let out a single low croak. Not loud, more like a comment. I laughed a little nervously. "You again?" That was my first mistake, talking to it. Over the next few days, it became part of the scenery. Always nearby. Sometimes on the fence, sometimes on the roof, once on the hood of my car. It never came closer than that. Never attacked, never made a mess, just watched. I googled it. Territorial behavior, especially if they associate them with food. I didn't feed it, at least not intentionally. Still, the idea made me feel better. Everything had a reason. Everything could be explained. That's how I stayed functional. That's how I slept at night, until I started hearing it. The sound came from outside my bedroom window. A soft tapping, irregular, like fingernails brushing glass. I sat up in bed, heart already racing, and listened. The tapping stopped. I told myself it was a branch, wind, a squirrel. The woods were full of noises I wasn't used to yet. Then I heard the croak, not loud, not aggressive, right outside the window. I didn't open the curtains. I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting my breaths until morning light crept in and made everything feel stupid and small. The raven was gone by then. But from that night on, my sleep started to unravel. I'd wake up at odd hours, convinced I'd heard something. Footsteps on the gravel, scraping along the siding. That low, thoughtful croak drifting through the dark. During the day, I noticed things that hadn't been there before. Black feathers on the porch, on the hood of my car. Once, right outside the bathroom window, pressed into the dirt like a marker. I stopped using the back steps. I stopped sitting near windows. I started checking the locks more than once before bed. And through all of it, that rational voice kept whispering explanations. Birds molt, wind carries things, stress amplifies harmless details. Then the raven started showing up closer. One afternoon, I opened the front door and nearly stepped on it. It stood on the porch railing less than 3 feet away, head cocked, eyes fixed on me. Its beak opened, and for a second I thought it was going to attack. Instead, it made a sound I'd never heard from an animal before. It wasn't a croak. It wasn't a caw. It was almost a sigh. Low, controlled, deliberate. I slammed the door and locked it, my hands shaking. I stood there listening, expecting scratching, flapping, something violent. Nothing came. That night as I lay in bed, I heard movement in the walls. Not rodents. Too heavy, too slow. Like something shifting its weight, testing the space. I didn't sleep at all. Somewhere around 3 a.m. I grabbed my phone just to feel less alone. That's when I realized I'd been holding my breath for minutes at a time without noticing. If you're still watching this, if this story has you hooked, do me a favor, subscribe to Nightmare Crypt now. Not for the algorithm, because what happened to me isn't unique. And the more people who hear this, the better chance someone recognizes the signs before it's too late. I wish I had. The breaking point came a week later. I was standing at the kitchen sink when I saw movement in the reflection of the window, a shape behind me, tall and narrow, passing through the hallway. I spun around, heart in my throat. Nothing. Every door was open, every room empty. The house was silent in that heavy way that presses against your ears. I told myself it was exhaustion, sleep deprivation, grief catching up with me. I leaned against the counter until the dizziness passed. That's when I heard my brother's voice, clear as day, calling my name from outside. Not shouting, not panicked, just normal, like he was standing at the edge of the yard, waiting for me to answer. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I was halfway to the door when something stopped me cold. A memory, sharp and sudden. My brother had died in a hospital 200 miles away. I stood there, hand hovering over the doorknob, listening to his voice call me again. From above, from the roof. And mixed beneath it, barely audible, was the low, satisfied croak of the raven. That was the moment I understood I was no longer in control. And the house wasn't the only thing listening. I backed away from the door so slowly my calves started to burn. My brother's voice kept calling my name, patient, familiar, the exact tone he used when he didn't want to spook me. When I didn't answer, it changed, just slightly. The cadence shifted. The pauses were wrong, too even, like someone repeating a recording they didn't fully understand. Open up. The raven croaked again, closer now, and I realized with a sick drop in my stomach that it wasn't on the roof anymore. It was inside the house. I didn't run, I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to bolt, but my body locked up, like prey that knows movement will only make it worse. I stood in the kitchen, listening to footsteps that didn't belong to anyone I knew. They moved with purpose, not rushed, not hesitant. Each step landed where it should, boards creaking in the familiar places, like whoever or whatever was walking had learned the house faster than I had. I'm cold, my brother's voice said, now from the hallway. Can you let me in? My vision tunneled. I pressed my nails into my palm until I felt skin give. The pain grounded me enough to whisper, "You're not real." The footsteps stopped. Silence swelled, thick and heavy, until my ears rang. Then the voice spoke again, right behind me. I know. Something brushed my shoulder, not a hand, not feathers, just pressure, like air being displaced by a body too close for comfort. I spun around, swinging blindly, but there was nothing there. The kitchen was empty, the hallway empty, the door still locked. On the floor near my feet lay a single black feather. That night, I barricaded myself in the bedroom with the chair and dresser shoved against the door. I turned every light on and sat on the bed until dawn, staring at the window. The raven perched on the sill just before sunrise, its claws clicking softly against the glass. It tapped once, twice, then it opened its beak and whispered my name. I didn't scream. I watched it with dry, burning eyes as it tilted its head, studying my reaction. The sound that came out of it wasn't my brother's voice this time. It was mine, flat, perfect, empty of breath. I see you. I blacked out. I woke up on the floor sometime after noon, sunlight slanting through the curtains. My head throbbed, my throat felt scraped raw, like I'd been screaming for hours. The raven was gone. I told myself I was done, that whatever this was, grief, stress, some kind of psychotic break, I needed help. I called my boss and left a message that barely made sense. I tried my sister, but it went to voicemail. I packed a bag with shaking hands, telling myself I'd drive straight to a hotel, then a doctor, then anywhere that wasn't here. As I reached for my keys, I noticed something carved into the wood of the front door. 3 shallow lines, then 4, then 3 again. Letters. I wiped dust away with my sleeve until the message came into focus. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from an unknown number. Where are you going? I dropped the phone like it burned me. The house creaked, settling, or tightening. I felt it then, a subtle pressure in my chest, like the walls were leaning in to listen. The air smelled wrong, metallic, damp. I thought of wet feathers and rot. I grabbed my keys and ran. The engine turned over, but the car didn't move. I slammed the gas. Nothing. The raven landed on the hood, its weight denting the metal with a soft crunch. It stared at me through the windshield, eyes reflecting my own panic back at me. It opened its beak and spoke in my voice again. Stay. I screamed then. I don't remember getting out of the car, only the sensation of running. Lungs on fire, gravel biting into my feet as I sprinted toward the road. I didn't look back until I reached the edge of the property. The house looked normal, quiet, empty. The raven was gone. I stood there shaking, waiting for something, anything, to prove I hadn't imagined it all. When nothing happened, I laughed, a cracked sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. I walked to the road and stuck my thumb out. The first car that passed didn't slow down. The second did. The driver, an older man with a graying beard, rolled down his window. You okay? I opened my mouth to answer, and froze. Behind him, in the back seat, perched on the headrest, was the raven. It met my eyes and croaked softly. I'm fine, I said, because I didn't know what else to say. He drove me into town without another word. I watched the bird in the mirror the whole way. It never moved. When we stopped in front of the motel, it was gone. I didn't sleep that night, or the next, or the one after that. I moved, changed my number, took a job 3 states away. I told myself distance would help, that whatever had latched onto me was tied to the house, to that place, to my grief. I was wrong. The raven finds me everywhere. Sometimes it's perched on a streetlight outside my apartment. Sometimes it's a reflection in a dark window that disappears when I turn. Sometimes it's just the sound, my voice, my brother's voice, whispering from places no one should be. I don't answer anymore, but it's learning. And now that you've heard this, now that you know what to look for, it might start paying attention to you too. If a raven starts watching you, if it starts sounding familiar, don't engage, don't speak, don't listen. I'm telling you this now because last night I heard it tap on my window again. And this time it said your name. The tap wasn't loud. That's the part I can't get out of my head. It wasn't frantic or aggressive or desperate. It was calm, controlled. Like it knew exactly how much sound it needed to make to pull my attention without alerting anyone else in the building. One tap, a pause long enough for my heart to start racing. Then another. I lay there in my new apartment, 3 states away from that house, staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked through another uneven rotation. The room smelled like stale laundry detergent and cheap carpet cleaner. Normal smells, safe smells. I clung to them like proof this was real, that I was here, not back there. The tapping came again. Same rhythm, same patience. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't even blink. I told myself that if I stayed perfectly still, it would go away, that whatever followed me couldn't cross this line, that it had rules. I don't know why I still believe that. "I know you're awake," my voice said from the other side of the glass. It wasn't loud, it wasn't mocking, almost gentle. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. I pressed my face into the pillow to muffle any sound and squeezed my eyes shut until white sparks burst behind them. "You don't have to hide," it continued. "You never did." I felt the bed dip slightly, not enough to show weight, just enough to tell me I wasn't alone anymore. That was the moment something inside me finally broke. Not in a dramatic way, not with screaming or sobbing, it was quieter than that. A resignation, like the last argument in my head finally lost. I understood then that it wasn't chasing me, it was waiting for me to accept it. I don't remember falling asleep, but I must have, because the next thing I knew, morning light was spilling across the floor. The room looked untouched. The window was closed. No marks. For a few minutes, I let myself believe it had been a dream. Then I checked my phone. There was a voice memo recorded at 3:17 a.m. I don't remember making it. My hands shook as I pressed play. At first there was only static and breathing. Then my voice spoke. Slow, deliberate, wrong. "It's getting easier," it said. "He listens better now." I deleted the file. Then I smashed the phone against the wall until the screen shattered and the battery popped out. I stood there canting, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. That's how it works now. No big moments, no clear confrontations. Just small intrusions that wear me down. The sound of wings overhead when I walk to work. A black feather on my doorstep. Someone on the street calling my name in my own voice and swearing they didn't say anything when I turn around. I stopped correcting people. I stopped explaining. I started writing this instead. Because here's the part I've been avoiding. The part I didn't want to admit, even to myself. Sometimes, late at night, when the tapping starts and the voice whispers from the dark, I feel something else beneath the fear. Relief. The waiting is worse than the presence. The silence hurts more than the sound. And there are moments, quiet, shameful moments, where I catch myself leaning toward the window, listening more closely, wondering what it will say next. That's how I know I'm losing. I don't know how much longer I can keep resisting. I don't know if this thing replaces you piece by piece, or if it waits until you're empty enough to step in all at once. I only know that it's patient, and it's been doing this longer than I've been alive. If you're hearing this on Nightmare Crypt, if my voice sounds tired or distant or not quite right, that's because I don't think I have much time left to warn anyone. Watch the birds. Pay attention to what sounds familiar. And if you ever hear your own voice calling you from somewhere it shouldn't be, don't answer. Because once it learns you well enough, it won't need to knock anymore. It'll already be inside, and you won't remember when you let it in.